Hey, Bible Talk family, welcome back to Bible Talk with BW, where we read scriptures, we observe it, and then we apply it to our lives. Today is Thursday, which means we're back at the Through the Bible series. And today we're doing Genesis 5, which is from Adam to Noah. We'll get into Noah later, but I think we'll just finish 5 today. There's going to be parts of the Bible that we read that aren't going to be as exciting. This is one of those, and but every word is important, right? So I do have something I want to share in this, even though there's not a lot here. But yeah, so with that being said, let's read. Genesis 5. This is the written account of Adam's family line. When God created mankind, he made them in the likeness of God. He created them male and female and blessed them. And he named them Adam when they were created. When Adam had lived 130 years, he had a son in his own likeness, in his own image, and he named him Seth. This is where we ended off with Genesis 4. You know, right? So there was 2 lines. Put that in your mouth. Give me that. There's 2 lines, and I gave him that so he wouldn't try to get my Bible, but now he's trying to get my Bible. Here, stand up. So Seth's line was considered a godly line, and Cain, as you guys know, Cain's line, the repercussions of that are still being felt today. So when God created mankind, he made them in the likeness of God. He created them male and female. Oh, sorry, I read that. After Seth was born, Adam lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Adam lived a total of 930 years. And then he died. Some people ask, how did he live so long when we only lived for like 100 years? As I mentioned before, when God created the world originally, he had this greenhouse effect in the sky. So there was a layer of water that was in the sky that protected the world. And that's why when the flood, here you go, crawl around. The flood happened, it dropped all that water. That's how it flooded the entire world. But that water, that layer above the world, it acted as a deterrent for the rays of the sun. It slowed the aging process. It slowed down the amount of sun ray. It was like a natural sunscreen. So it made the aging process slower. So that's how they were able to live for such a long time. I also find it interesting. A lot of people will say, well, Adam, he sinned, and yet God said, if you eat of this fruit, you will die. And some people say, well, he lived for another 130 years. Yeah, but he still died. But also, I want to point out that in the Bible, it says a day to God is as 1,000 years to us. I just find that interesting. Nobody lived over 1,000 years in the Bible. Nobody lived over a day in God's sight. I found that interesting. Okay. When Seth had lived 105 years, he became the father of Enosh. After he became the father of Enosh, Seth lived 807 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Seth lived a total of 912 years, and then he died. When Enosh had lived 90 years, he became the father of Kenan. After he became the father of Kenan, Enosh lived 815 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enosh lived a total of 905 years, and then he died. When Kenan had lived 70 years, he became the father of Mahalalel. After he became the father of Mahalalel, Kenan lived 840 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Kenan lived a total of 910 years. and then he died. When Mahalalel lived 65 years, he became the father of Jared. After he became the father of Jared, Mahalalel lived 830 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Mahalalel lived a total of 895 years, and then he died. When Jared had lived 162 years, he became the father of Enoch. After he became the father of Enoch, Jared lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Jared lived a total of 962 years, and then he died. When Enoch had lived 65 years, he became the father of Methuselah. After he became the father of Methuselah, Enoch walked faithfully with God 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enoch lived a total of 365 years. Enoch walked faithfully with God. Then he was no more because God took him away. I want to highlight this because there's only two people in the Bible that God took away. And we'll get to the other person later on, but I think it's important just to note this because this is my own thought. This is just what I believe. You guys can choose to believe or not. But in Revelations, it says there will be two prophets that come back and that are preaching the word. And I believe it will be these two people in the Bible that got taken up. That's what I believe that they'll come back and they'll be the two prophets in Revelation that it talks about, which we'll get there shortly. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he became the father of Lamech. After he became the father of Lamech, Methuselah lived 782 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Methuselah lived a total of 969 years, and then he died. When Lamech had lived 182 years, he had a son. He named him Noah and said, "He will comfort us in the labor and painful toil of our hands caused by the ground the Lord had cursed." After Noah was born, Lamech lived 595 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Lamech lived a total of 777 years, and then he died. After Noah was 500 years old, he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. All right, that is Genesis 5. A lot of people, a lot of numbers, but it's all good stuff. So what I want to talk about, I'm going to go back to the beginning, and I'm going to talk about when God created mankind in their image, in the likeness of God. He created them male and female and blessed them, and he named them Adam. Well, King James Version, it says name them Adam. Other translations, it'll say mankind, or it changes that. But I think it's important to keep that they name them Adam because when you get married, the two become one. I feel it's important that, and the Bible shows that God calls us to, your last name is to change, it's not. Maiden name hyphen his last name. It's Mr. and Mrs. What? That's stuck. You okay? It's, Mr. and Mrs. his last name. It's not Mr. and Mrs. her last name hyphen his last name, or she's able to keep her last name. And that's something small, but I feel like it's something that's important to God, and it's something we should keep. This passage is also one that Jesus talks about marriage, and I'm going to read that real quick. If you turn to Matthew 19:4, actually I'm going to start in 3. It says this: some Pharisees came to him, talking about Jesus, to test him. They asked, "Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any and every reason?" So Moses allowed them to divorce, and what happened was um, divorce was a very popular thing even in Moses' time, and then again they continued that on, and so now they're coming to ask Jesus this, trying to ensnare him, and what Jesus says is beautiful. He says, "Haven't you read," he replied, "that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female and said, 'For this reason a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate that.'" I have this highlighted, but I want to circle that last phrase, let no one separate that. God takes marriage very, very seriously, and it's something that our culture has uh, made not a big deal. You know, we see divorce rates at an all-time high, not just in the world, but in the church. And it's something I'm really passionate about, marriage, because as so many people are, they've just experienced divorce in their life. And I'm just going to continue on a little bit, and I'll talk about this. It says, "Why then," they asked, "did Moses command them that a man give his wife a certificate of divorce and send her away?" Jesus replied, "Moses permitted you to divorce your wife." I want to highlight that he says Moses. He does not say God allowed it. He said Moses permitted you to divorce your wives because your hearts were hard. In the King James, it says your hearts were calloused. I really like the phrase calloused better than hard. "But it was not this way from the beginning. I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife except for sexual immorality and marries another woman commits adultery." Sexual immorality is nothing to joke around with. There's a reason Jesus says this, because the act of two becoming one, there's a lot more to that than, you know, just sleeping around, or it's on a, you know, a spiritual level. It talks about, that's the one thing that can truly kill a marriage, is adultery. And you know, and that's why it's so important that we guard our heart, we guard our eyes. We don't get into the chitter and chatter of people at work or people we hang out with, trying to just look at other people. Now you guys might say, well, you know, we know all this, and that's good. I hope you guys do know all this, but it's super important to me because I've experienced Isaiah. He's okay. I've experienced the heartache of divorce, and not me personally. I've never been divorced, but my parents went through divorce, and parents don't realize the effect it has on kids. Um, it tears families apart. The first time I ever felt the Lord's presence, I would think I was either 3 or 4 years old. I was at a church, and my mom and my dad were going through a hard time, which happened quite often at that time. But I remember the pastor, the preacher, he was talking, and he was talking about how people won't change unless they choose to change and allow God to change their hearts. And I remember sitting there, and I was a little kid, and I just wanted to cry, but I thought it wasn't okay to cry. And because I thought about my mom and my dad, you know, I thought I wanted my dad and my mom to work out so bad. I wanted I didn't want them to fight anymore. I didn't want them to um, yell. I didn't want them to throw stuff. I didn't want all these things in my house, my life, and and I didn't understand. My mom. I felt like my mom was able to take such good care of us, and I just wanted my dad to. I didn't understand why my dad couldn't stop drinking or couldn't stop doing this or couldn't stop doing that, or and all I wanted was them for to get along and for things to be good. And then that was the first time I felt the Spirit really take hold of my heart. And when I was just a little kid, it wasn't a children's service, it was a regular service. And it just hit me that, man, if my dad is going to change, it has to be a choice he makes. My mom can't force him to change. um, and God has to work a miracle in his life. Yeah, getting into the mischief over here, huh? But I also say marriage it's so beautiful, and it's something God takes very serious. And I see, oh really? I see personally, I know families that seem so good. I do some landscaping on the side for families, and one of them in particular, they just, everything from the outside looked amazing. And then just one day, I know the dad, I know the mom well, I know that they have 2 daughters. Just one day, they just decided, she decided that, she wanted a divorce. And I can see the effect it has on him, on this guy I work for, and her daughters. And man, it's so waving. It breaks my heart. And I know other people in the church who that they have kids and just seem like godly families. And I have such a heart for restoring marriages, because I look at my son, I look at my wife, and I would do anything for them. And I know a lot of other people would too. And people think, the grass is greener on the other side. That's not the case. People think, we have this whole new thing mentality. You want a new car, you want a new phone, you want new clothes. People think they can just trade in for a better husband or a better wife. And if you're not happy with your current husband or your current wife, the problem is you're just not happy. It's nothing to do with your marriage. It's just you. Studies show that people aren't more happy once they get a divorce or once they remarry. They're not any happier. This isn't easy to talk about by any means, and I don't have a ton of knowledge in this topic, but I have a lot of experience in knowing what it causes, the pain, the hurt, the destruction, the divide. God calls us to be one, man and woman, to come together and be one. And when we don't do what the Bible tells us, it causes a lot more harm than it does good. We see families who don't have dads. We see broken homes. And I just feel like the Bible repeats this, and Jesus repeats this, so we'll know that God takes marriage very serious. Even Jesus said, if you look at a woman with lust, you've committed adultery in your heart. That's how serious God takes it. I didn't mean to get off on such a long talk about this, but my heart is to see marriages restored. And to see families restored. So that's why I want to just take extra time on this topic and just share my heart. And I just want people to realize that it causes a lot more pain on children than we think. Even though my mom was in a bad situation, all I wanted was for things to work out. Even though I know it was better for my mom that they ended up, my mom and dad ended up, probably better for my mom and my dad. All I wanted personally was for them to work it out, and for my dad's heart to change, my mom's heart to change, and you know, it affects kids a lot more than people think. And my prayer is that marriages would be restored in this time, in this COVID time that we're going through. And I know right now it's actually going the opposite way. And it breaks my heart. And so that's why I'm talking back, I'm talking restoration. I want to see people's lives and their marriages restored. And that only can come when we lay down our lives and we trust in God, we trust in Jesus for our comfort, to bring us joy that maybe we feel is missing in our marriage. Only God can fill that hole that we think we have, whether that be anything. We see rich people dying of drug overdoses and committing suicide. We think we want more and better things, but that's not true. What we're missing is this relationship with the Lord. And that's my prayer, is that the Lord can speak, can come into our lives and transform our marriages, transform our relationships, transform our work habits, just transform us completely. Because I know he can, because he's done it for me and he's done it for my family. And he can do it for years as well. All right, well, again, sorry I spent so much time on this. I don't know why I'm apologizing. My wife pointed that out. I gotta quit apologizing, because this is important to me. So I'm just speaking my truth and the Lord's truth as well. All right, have a good night. And next Thursday we're gonna get into Noah, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. So until next time.